Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United show. In today's live stream, we'll be discussing all the latest transfer news. Now that the takeover is done, confirmed, announced, well, it's not technically done, but it's announced. Now that the takeover is announced and waiting to be complete, there's a lot more information coming out on really what Manchester United's plans are over the next coming months in regards to transfers, Ten Hag's future, and more. There's lots of agreements in place, like the Glazers can't take out dividends, that the full sale can still happen at Ratcliffe would get a certain amount of money if a full sale happened, and agreements in place that actually, if the manager's going to be sacked, that will be Ineos' decision. Even though Ineos is 6 to 8 weeks away from being confirmed, they will have the power right now whether to sack Ten Hag or whether to do things in regards to transfers, among many informations and among many other bits of news and information. And one of the interesting reports and stories going about is Manchester United looking at Bakayoko, a very good right winger, kind of the right wing version of Doku at Manchester City, ahead of the January window, with Jadon Sancho leaving. This looks like a smart deal to do. This looks like it's got nothing to do with those at United, because it's a smart deal to do. And we will be talking about the transfer news, Todibo, Fofana, Bakayoko, players that we're linked to signing in January, and the latest on Ten Hag's future, as well as diving into the Villa game. We normally do post-match sort of therapy after all the Man United games, but obviously that game didn't end until 10 p.m, so it was way too late. So we're doing that today. So do get involved. Let me know your thoughts on the game yesterday. Do you want to talk about Mino, Garnacho, and more? And of course, smash the like button if you're new. But yes, time to get involved in the live chat, people. Is the live chat coming up for you guys? Because I've got nothing in the live chat yet, so I don't know if it's just glitched and not come up just yet. So I do want to dive into our first story. We've got multiple stories. Some of these I touched upon in my video earlier today, but a lot of these I've saved for this live stream, because I think when you do a live stream, it's just a lot easier to get into and dive into lots of information. I completely forgot that Chelsea are playing tonight. Full debut for Nkunku as well. I think he's a good player, so I assume he'll have a good game. But we have got breaking news coming out that Mason Mount is back in training, expected back in the coming weeks. Amad Diallo could make the Manchester United squad anytime soon. There's also news coming out. And then obviously the big story that United have their eye on, PSV winner Bakayoko, which is what we're going to dive into in today's video. Ten Hag getting sacked? Well, no, Ten Hag's not getting sacked, but there's an agreement in place that Ineos can sack Ten Hag if they want. So we will get into that now. So we'll get into the story now. So the story basically came out and said that Man United will be unable to sack Erik Ten Hag without Jim Ratcliffe's approval, while his agreement to buy a stake in the club awaits. It was said that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has an agreement over sacking Ten Hag in place with Manchester United, and that deal will not, and Ten Hag will not be able to be sacked unless Ineos agree to it. So essentially there's an agreement over Ten Hag's future, which is essentially, if Ineos want Ten Hag sacked tomorrow, he will be sacked tomorrow. If Ineos don't want Ten Hag sacked tomorrow, he won't be sacked tomorrow. Ineos now have control. Even though the deal is not officially done, we still got to get past the Premier League owners test, and there's another 6 to 8 weeks until Ineos will be in place, Ineos will be in power. They've basically agreed on a deal that actually, Ineos have got a sort of sacking Ten Hag clause in their contract, where if they say, look, you need to sack Ten Hag, the board will have to sack Ten Hag. If they say, look, Ten Hag needs to stay, they will need to say. They've got an agreement with the Glazers, the temporary people, saying you can't sack Ten Hag unless we say you can, essentially, which means that is Ten Hag's future at more risk than we thought. We thought Ten Hag's future would be safe for a couple of weeks, but if Ineos have said enough, they could sack him tomorrow. I don't think Ineos will sack him, and I think that Ten Hag will get longer than a lot longer than people think, because from what I've heard and from people I've spoke to and reliable information that's come out, Ineos' focus right now isn't on buying players. It isn't on sacking the manager. We're going to get into players we might be buying and why they might be sacking Ten Hag in a second, and Graham Potter and that. But Ineos' focus right now is more on actually just getting their nose into United. Brailsford is there, Blanc is coming in, and doing a massive overhaul. There's said to be over 300 jobs on the line. There's going to be a massive overhaul by Ineos. And basically, Ineos are more focused on getting the right people in to make the decisions before making the decisions, if that makes sense. They want to get a Dan Ashworth in, a Paul Mitchell in, a Blanc in, a Brailsford in at the club for a month, settled in, looked at the club, how it runs, to assess what changes they're going to make. Is essentially sort of the feeling about what's going to go on at Manchester United. And it said, well, there's an agreement that Ineos can sack Ten Hag and that Ineos will have the say over what happens over Ten Hag. Now it's up to Ineos. There's an agreement there with the club. There's a feeling that Ineos, even if results get bad, won't sack Ten Hag. They're likely to give him to the end of the season because they want to work on other things, get the right structure in place, and then let them decide on Erik Ten Hag's future, is sort of what's been said and sort of the news and the movement as well. Assess Erik Ten Hag at the end of the season, and I stick with that. Look, Ten Hag showed what he can do today. He played his best players in the best position. Ten Hag picked the best possible lineup versus Villa and played them in their best positions, which is what we've been asking Ten Hag to do. And The main reason I've criticised Ten Hag is things like substitutions, not picking the best lineup, playing McTominay above Bruno. That's why I've been very critical of Ten Hag. But I've always said when I've been critical of Ten Hag after a win or loss, I've said with Ten Hag, do not sack him to the end of the season. I say give this guy to the end of the season, assess where we're at the end of the season. If you sack him now, we've got an interim to the end of the season, so the season's written off. You might as well give this guy time, see what happens when he gets key players back from injury, give him to the end of the season. If it's crap at the end of the season, sack him. But we've got so many problems with the board, the recruitment, the scouts. We've got so many problems with players and player attitudes. There's 90% of these players I want gone before I would want Erik Ten Hag gone. So although Erik Ten Hag hasn't been totally convincing, I thought the Villa game was very convincing. He got his tactics spot on, which we'll dive into that. And I've been very clear, give him to the end of the season and then make a decision then. But he did get everything spot on as well, which I like to see as well. Last night's performance will hopefully convince them to keep Erik Ten Hag. Hopefully, yeah. I just hope he gets to the end of the season. And I think that will be the case with the Ineos clause as well. Makes sense. Ineos have full control and have to approve any moves while the deal is completed anyway. Yeah, makes absolute sense. So should we dive into the information that's been said on Ineos? So it was said by Paul Hurst today. New Manchester United must consult Ineos on every potential player transfer while their investment is being approved by the Premier League. The same applies to the future of Ten Hag or Murta. So Paul Hurst confirmed that Manchester United must consult Ineos on whether they're going to sack Ten Hag or Murta, and they must actually get Ineos to agree to this. Same with transfers. So Man United cannot do any transfers, could not sack Murta, could not sack Ineos, unless Manchester United give them permission to do that. Romano said this as well, that Man United have to tell Ineos about every player transfer and investment they want to do, and it's got to be approved. And it was also said that basically Ineos are going to have a big say while they're waiting for their investment to be approved by Premier League authorities. And that was two big bits of information. So no players, no manager without Ineos' permission, which is good. It's smart. And I don't think, while Ineos now have the power to sack Ten Hag, I don't think they will, because I think they know they've got bigger problems to deal with. And obviously he's just got a really good win versus Villa, which might show us a bit like, oh, if we can keep this up, what Ten Hag's doing when he's playing his best players in the best positions, we look a lot better. It was also said there will be no dividend payment at Manchester United for at least 3 years under the Glazers by James Ducker, which we talked about in my video earlier today. But one of the most important and interesting things that James Ducker mentioned in his report earlier on is under the so-called drag-along right, Sir Jim Ratcliffe would be forced to sell his shares, subject to him receiving £26 per share if the Glazers decide a full sale. So it's basically been confirmed today, and I covered this in my video earlier briefly, that there's been a confirmation that actually if the Glazers decide on a full sale or decide they want a full sale, they can sell the club. If the Glazers could decide in the next 18 months they're going to sell the club, and that opens the door for Qatar, that opens the door for a majority of opportunities. I've been frustrated mostly with this takeover because it's not a full sale and Jim's enabled the Glazers to stay, and there's no guarantee that they will eventually sell to Jim. I'm assuming Jim wouldn't do this deal if he didn't think he was going to get more power, otherwise it would be a bit stupid. So I assume that while they can't legally agree on it, I assume there's some kind of verbal agreement in place that actually Ineos will eventually own most of United. But there is actually an agreement that basically says, should the Glazers decide to completely sell the club within the next sort of 18 months, then obviously Jim Ratcliffe will be able to get £26 per share as part of that sale as well, which is quite hefty. But I think it was mentioned by another journalist, if the full sale happens, Ratcliffe gets first choice. So potentially Qatar could come in with $6 billion and say, look, we're going to do the full sale, and the Glazers can sell to Qatar. Qatar aren't out the window now. Nothing is out the window. I think ultimately we've been hearing the word full sale for the last year and a bit, and we never got the full sale. We got 25% done. I don't think the Glazers are going anywhere soon, but I think it's interesting information to see that the club is still open to a full sale. Are they using Ratcliffe for a couple of years to get full sale, or will it ultimately end up into a Ratcliffe full sale? I think it will ultimately end up into a Ratcliffe full sale, which is, anything that gets the Glazers out and then less power is positive. So yeah, it's open. A lot of people hyping up Qatar. I don't think it's like that. I think ultimately it'll probably just go to Ratcliffe, but the club is up for full sale, which I think is interesting as well. Heard they're not going to do anything with Sancho this window. Well, they're just desperate to get rid of him, but if they get cash for him, they want to reinvest as well. I don't think they can't not do anything for Sancho because he's not playing, he's not doing anything, he's not helping the team. I think they just want to get rid of him. But it'd be interesting to see, because there was a report that came out that said Ineos are going to make, one of their first jobs is going to make Sancho and Ten Hag make up, which would be interesting because I think it's almost too late now. I think even if Ineos come in and Sancho apologises to Ten Hag, if you're Ten Hag, you're thinking F off. But the interesting thing is we're 4 days away from the January window and there's no big move coming in for Sancho. And Sancho's done this drop and refused to play for 4 months just because he didn't get game time in the first 3 games of the season. Sancho probably thought he'd have teams lining up for him in January, but to be honest, there's no one that bothered about Sancho or no one that interested in Sancho now. And so Sancho's probably a little bit frustrated that no one's really lining up or particularly interested in signing him. Samuel Lutgust then did a report to say that United have to consult Ineos and relevant figures over every significant change within the club, from scouting, recruitment, managerial and players. And the Times said in a document for authorities, we learned that the club cannot appoint, dismiss or accept the resignation of a director of football or manager during the ratification process without consulting Ineos. So it said that Ten Hag will not be able to be sacked unless Ineos agree to this. Ineos have an agreement in place, which means that the club cannot make any major decisions in this ratification period without their permission as well, which is another source saying this. And they said that in a lot of detail as well, that Man United must consult Ineos if they are to initiate or continue discussions regarding a purchase, sale or other transfer as well. Even though they've not officially taken over sporting operations, nothing can now happen in terms of sporting operations, the club, manager, player and future without confirmation from Ineos. And then it was also said by Jamie Jackson that Surgeon Ratcliffe is expected to ask an external auditor to assess Man United's structure and expenditure with a view of executing a major streamline exercise, meaning as many as 300 jobs are under threat as well. So big clear out too many jobs as well. Probably a lot of jobs that shouldn't be under threat, but yeah, looks like it's going to be a big clear out as well. Massive comeback second half. It was a big comeback. Honestly, when we were 2-0 down, I thought, well, we haven't scored in 4 games. We're hopeless to score and we're out the game. There's no way we're scoring 3 when we're 2-0 down. And then when we made it 2-1, I said, look, I've got a reason to believe. And then when we made it 2-2, I said, let's push for the winner. A draw's a good result after going 2-0 down, but I was like, let's push for the winner. And we deserved the winner, and nothing better than Højlund getting the winner there, not just because it's a good goal, not just because it's first goal, but it's also the winner. It's the 3 points. It's a massive goal as well. I hope game versus Forest will be good, just as with goals yesterday for both teams score 3. Yeah, Forest had a really good game versus Newcastle, who are very injury-ridden as well. And there are rumours that Sancho might not go anywhere in January. Is some reports going around as well. Sort of Sancho for Todibo, wishful thinking. If we could do that, brilliant. But I don't know if Sancho will go Nice. Sancho's got a bit of an ego. I probably think he's too big for Nice. That's the problem with Sancho. I think Sancho thinks he's better than he is, and he's going to get better deals than he is. But I actually think Sancho's going to be quite surprised when he realises that no one's lining up to sign him. No one at all is really lining up to sign him. Yeah, Mason Mount is officially back in training and expected back soon. His actual return date was meant to be last week, but I'm guessing he wasn't fit in time. And with him being injured quite a bit, you don't want to take the risk as well. Chelsea's lineup versus Crystal Palace is crap today. They're playing Petrovic, Gusto, Diasasi, Badiashile, Colwill. They're playing Caicedo, Gallagher, Maatsen, Jackson, Mudryk and Cuckoo. I mean, they've got Cuckoo playing, but I actually fancy Palace in the game later on. But we're not here to talk about Chelsea Palace. We're here to talk about the football news as well. So first big story coming in is a big story, which I'm happy with as well. Thoughts on Frimpong replacement of either Wan-Bissaka or Dalot? Yeah, I think he'd be a good replacement for Dalot. I think Wan-Bissaka offers you something that no one else can get, which is security 1v1. I think Wan-Bissaka, while he's not good enough to start week in, week out for United, he's a good squad player to have because there's certain game states where Wan-Bissaka will just be perfect for it. I think he's a player that Man City would even look at. It sounds crazy because he's not technically good enough for Man City. But like as a backup, as a bench player, I think he's what Pep would want, someone that can bring on and do a job 1v1, even though he's not good. Technically is good on the ball as well. So yeah, it said that it said Man United are unable to sack Ten Hag without Ineos' permission. Ineos have an agreement over a sack clause on Ten Hag as well. And it was said that Ineos have an agreement over transfers and that Ineos are a fan of Bakayoko. So shall we get into the Bakayoko transfer news? Because this guy would be an absolute baller. This guy would be a great signing for Manchester United. And let's get 100 likes as well. We certainly need an overhaul top to bottom, but hopefully with the aim to improve, not just saving money. Exactly. Spot on with that, Alex, as well. You don't announce your interest in Sancho is one thing. He won't know if anyone is really in for him until the end of the Jan window earliest, but he's available on loan on a cheap deal. So I'm surprised no one's really coming and showing some interest as well. Brailsford was there at Old Trafford. Yeah, Wan-Bissaka's body language and effort doesn't look good as of late. Not sure if he's tied to contract negotiations. Yeah, I thought Wan-Bissaka was good last game, but I get what you mean. But I don't know if that's just Wan-Bissaka. He just comes across that way. I always felt like he comes across that way, to be honest, as well. Perhaps 2-0 Villa took United lightly. And yeah, to be honest, we're going to talk about why Man United won that game because we're going to talk about the press and what Man United did to win that game. But let's dive into the transfer news because I want to get into the story on Bakayoko, who for me is like the right-wing version of Doku. I was about to say the male version of Doku. Well, I think Doku's a man. So I don't know what I was thinking there, but he's like more the right wing version of Doku because he's very, very direct, and obviously he's from the Belgium, the Netherlands, the Belgium. What is going on with me today? So let me get this story up on the screen, guys, because it's just an interesting story coming about. So it's been said by a few people that Manchester United have their eyes on Johan Bakayoko. His market value is estimated at 40 million euros. Now, Bakayoko actually has the most open play chances created in the Premier League. In the Champions League this season with 15, which is joint with Bellingham. He's joint first for open play chances created in the Champions League, which is 15 for PSV in a difficult group, which is great. He's a player that is very direct. He's happy to run at people, attack people. And we saw Garnacho was playing very direct on the right wing yesterday, a solid game. Jeremy Doku's the opposite of Anthony. Anthony is passive. He is predictable. He is boring. Not Doku. Oh my God, I've called him Doku. Oh, Bakayoko. What am I? What? Bakayoko. I was comparing him to Doku. I started calling him Doku. Bakayoko, for me, is like he's just better than Anthony. Like, he's direct. He runs at people. Likes to make things happen. I'm not going to act like I'm a pro. I've only watched 2 or 3 PSV games this season, but in every single game I've watched from PSV, he's been exciting because I'm fed up of our wingers doing nothing. I'm fed up of Anthony doing nothing. He doesn't even do his spin anymore. So I want a winger that's going to attack people and do something and make things happen. And he is top of the Champions League group for chances created. He's top of the Premier League group top of the Champions League group for most open play chances created, which I think is massive, because we were sort of looking at match of the day and talking about it, how Garnacho and Anthony were averaging 1 pass per game into Højlund, and our wingers were really lacking service to our striker. And then you're looking at a player that's created the most chances in the Premier League from open play. You're looking at one of the best chance creators in the game, and you're thinking, well, that's what United need. Bakayoko, Sula, Nico Williams, and Elise are the 4 right wingers that I would be really open to Manchester United signing as well. Bakayoko can carry effective passer, rapid, and a creative presser as well. 100%. I just think he's got a lot of what we want in as well. We had Alanga, who was better and more proven than Bakayoko, and we sold him. Alanga is not as good on the ball as Bakayoko at carrying it. Alanga's good for Forest because teams don't play a low block against Forest, and he's good on that sort of counter play. And Alanga's a good player, but I think Bakayoko, in terms of what he can offer in terms of dribbling, skill, all-round ability is better than Nancy Alanga. I'm a big fan of him as well. Bakayoko is one of the best young right wingers in the sport, and if he was to replace Sancho, I think it would be a brilliant deal as well. We need to build off this result, not just revert to the Scots selection. Yeah, we're going to dive into the game and what's really important now, because obviously Bakayoko will be a great signing. He'd be a great replacement for Sancho. I can't see us signing him unless we get money for Sancho, and I can't see us getting money for Sancho unless he goes to Saudi, which I can't see happening, which I think is unlikely. But I want to go back to talking about the Villa game and sort of everything that was right. And I think Ten Hag got his starting 11 spot on. I think that's one thing that Ten Hag hit the nail on the head with, was his starting 11 for Manchester United. I think I was really impressed with it. I think he picked the best players in each position, and he didn't go back to that Scott McTominay BS. And it's like, now can you continue that? This lineup was the best we played in possession. This lineup, I'm not saying it was perfect. There was faults, particularly on set pieces, but that is the best we've been in possession. We know that Eriksen and Bruno caused Nottingham Forest a lot of problems last season. I'd like to see that starting 11 be chosen again as well. Alanga wouldn't work in Ten Hag's system. Also, I think while Alanga's doing great at Forest, I just think if you're at Man United and you're an attacker, as good as you are, you'd be doing worse. I think Garnacho would be doing just as good at Nottingham Forest right now. I think just the way United played has made it difficult for attackers. Like, our attackers haven't been good enough, but we can't act like the way Man United play football complements or helps the attackers at all. We play some of the most depressing football in the league. We will talk about Bakayoko, and we will talk about Ineos' plans and transfer plans in a second. We will dive into some more information, but I want to show you something that I made, actually, sort of talking through Manchester United, sort of something that I noticed that worked really well, actually. I'm going to get my football tactics board up. Football tactics board. I'm going to get something up for you that's going to explain what Ten Hag did. This is what Ten Hag did at half-time, which I think totally and completely changed the game. When Ten Hag did this at half-time, I thought, yeah, that sort of changed the game for me. So if I can find that here, one sec. All right, let's put this in here. Let's put this here, and let's put this here. Okay, I want to show you something quickly. Where's number 9? Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to show you something here, okay? All right, let me get my screen up. Oh, crap, that's not shared. Okay, let me share my screen with you. I want to show you something. So this is what Ten Hag did at half-time, and I'm going to explain why it makes... One says, it's not loading. This is what Ten Hag did at half-time, and I want to explain why it makes such a difference, okay? So I don't know how well you can see that, but we'll put that into full screen mode. I don't know how well you can see that there, but that is in full screen mode, okay? This is Villa in blue, Manchester United in red. I'm going to break this down for you as simple as I can. Villa in blue, Manchester United in red. So here's Emi Martinez. Emi Martinez is here, number one. Here's the ball, okay? You can see me playing around with the ball. Emi Martinez takes a goal kick, okay? The way the Man United presses is we're trying to push Villa to play down our left-hand side. So when Emi Martinez has the ball, Højlund closes down Villa's right centre-back, Rashford closes down Villa's right back, and Garnacho comes to close down Villa's left centre-back, and we are trying to force Villa to play down their left-hand side. But the problem with that is it leaves a lot of space here for Digne. So Digne is over here, and Wan-Bissaka will be dealing with Jacob Ramsey over here. The problem is Villa, with Garnacho coming over here to mark out their left centre-back, opens this space for Digne. And the next thing you knew versus Villa is Digne and Ramsey, but all of a sudden having a 2v1 versus Wan-Bissaka. And as good as Wan-Bissaka is, 2v1, you're going to struggle. And that meant that Man United couldn't control aspects of the game. Because of the way that we'd set up with the press, with Wan-Bissaka being deep here, sort of dealing with Ramsey, and Garnacho comes over because we're trying to force them wide, it meant that there was space here opened up down the flank, and they could 2v1 Wan-Bissaka, which is where we got caught out a lot this season. And Wan-Bissaka was good at dealing with it, but the press wasn't working. What worked in the second half and allowed us to get control was all of a sudden, when Man United pressed in the second half, you see Wan-Bissaka here, who's number 4, you see that Manchester United are pressing a lot more advanced in this second half, because Wan-Bissaka comes and commits to the press, and all of a sudden when Villa play out from the back, because of the midfield man-to-man mark, basically every single person was being marked out of the game. And Villa then had to go long, and then Kobbie Mainoo here, number 6, was doing a really good job of winning the ball back. Dalot actually came and inverted into midfield a little bit as well in possession, which helped Kobbie Mainoo out. But basically Villa were forced to go long, which means it's a 50-50, or they were trying to play out from the back, but because of the press, as soon as Villa play in a pass, because of where Man United was positioned, all of a sudden you've got 3 Man United players swarming the ball, ready to counter on what would maybe be a Villa missed pass, and there you go, chances opened up. And the good thing about this is sometimes the press works, and it's worked in certain games, even like the Wolves game start of the season, the press kind of worked, but the problem was where Manchester United positioned themselves and the quality of players on the ball meant that we couldn't capitalise winning the ball. Because versus Aston Villa, when we win the ball back, it's normally Bruno or Eriksen on the ball with Rashford, Garnacho and Højlund running in behind. It made it a lot easier for Manchester United. When Man United won the ball back, whether it be Bruno, whether it be Eriksen, Manchester United were in a lot better position because they also had Bruno and Eriksen that were good on the ball. And what I noticed was Christian Eriksen, let's say he's number 9 here, he would go out into this left-hand side when Dalot would sort of invert into midfield and help out Mainoo here. Eriksen would come into this left-hand side. Johnny Evans would go more to the left. Varane would be a wide right centre-back. Johnny Evans would be a wide left centre-back. Wan-Bissaka would come up, commit to the press. You'd have sort of 2 midfielders with Dalot and Mainoo inverting. Eriksen would drop as sort of this left mid here. Wan-Bissaka was almost this right mid here. And then Bruno sort of drops a little bit deeper here. And you'd see Eriksen just spraying these balls in behind. Because whenever Man United got the ball, we was sort of like this in possession. And he was spraying it in behind. And it really worked for Manchester United sort of in that sort of second half. Basically, Ten Hag having Wan-Bissaka commit to the press meant that it was hard for Villa to play through us, which meant that Villa couldn't dominate the game and control the ball, which meant that we could dominate the game and control the ball. And because Ten Hag had picked out the right players, we actually had players to capitalise on that in possession. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically that is what Ten Hag did so well, and I think that's what massively helped Manchester United sort of win the game and get a result. Guys, please do subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new, by the way, and of course smash that like button. I go live every single evening on the channel talking about all the latest Manchester United news, transfer news, takeover news, and more. So do subscribe if you're new. Sancho's the next Dele Alli. It feels like that. Totally feels like that. Bakayoko will always be a gamble, I agree. I think Nico Williams and Elise are safer options. Nico Williams, Elise, Sule, Bakayoko, one of those 4 right wingers I'd be really interested in. I think Bakayoko's ability to be direct is what makes him most appealing as well. Højlund's now hungry for more goals, I agree. And Aston Villa basically wrote the book how to not play us. Yeah, to be fair, I will say this: Ten Hag got his lineup right, but Villa playing the high line helped us. I don't know if Ten Hag knew that, but basically having Eriksen and Bruno having dominating possession versus Aston Villa with Eriksen and Bruno on the ball a lot, and Garnacho and Rashford making runs in behind against the Villa high line was the way we were going to win that game. And Eric Ten Hag took advantage of that. Obviously, we're offside a lot and we fell for Villa's offside trap, but you don't play a high line against Man United if Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford are on it, because they will punish you more than any other team. Maybe because Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford haven't been on this season, they thought, do you know what I mean? Alex makes a good point here. Scott removal was keen, spatial improvement, Højlund freedom to operate, Bruno an ideal role, and Eriksen can link play. Yeah, and I want to talk about that. Scott McTominay is one of those guys that I don't mind United using him if he comes on with 15, 20 minutes to go. We need a goal. We need something to happen. That's cool. But I don't want Scott McTominay to start games because he can make goals happen. Well, he can score, but he can't make goals happen. He can't make anything else happen. He doesn't get involved enough in build-up in play. And what we had today was Maino, Eriksen, Bruno, this technical midfield three that can all keep the ball. Whereas McTominay can't. This technical midfield three that all like to have a lot of the ball in a game. McTominay doesn't. It likes to show themselves, make themselves available, or read the game well. McTominay was playing as a number 10, even though he had one key pass in, I think, 13 starts as a number 10 and was creating nothing. Bruno plays as a number 10 and creates 4 chances in that game, 30 passes into the final third and completed 5 through balls, which is the most through balls completed in a single game since De Bruyne in September 2022. Eriksen and Maino in the pivot allowed Bruno to play further up the pitch, which meant he was just spraying balls into the final third, and Bruno had an absolutely world-class game, 5 through balls. He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, Bruno Fernandes. But when McTominay plays, he means that Bruno has to play deeper and McTominay can't do what Bruno can do. But what McTominay can't do is he's not very good at retaining the possession. He's not very good at recycling the ball. And that is something that Eriksen is very good at doing. What we sort of noticed was Eriksen sort of went into the left half space, so the drop deeper went more onto the left-hand side, and he was deeper because he was getting the ball in good areas where he could just spray it forward and go long, or he could advance it into Bruno. And what we found is not only was Scott McTominay dropped for Bruno, but Bruno had Maino and Eriksen behind him, which were balanced players that were good in possession, that were finding Bruno in the final third, where Bruno could make those key passes to unlock the teams and unlock the team's defence, which worked really well. Garnacho and Rashford had a good game as well. Alice, why doesn't Garnacho get the number 7 shirt? I don't think it's that deep. I mean, I wouldn't have given it to Mount, but I don't think the number 7 shirt's that deep as well. No one is going to risk the problem with Sancho. Yeah, I think with Jadon Sancho now, the line, like even if he begs to come back, I think it's gone for him. I think even if Sancho begged and pleaded, like, let me back, I just think it's gone for Jadon Sancho because you didn't play football for 4 months. You clearly don't care about Man United if you're willing to not play for 4 months because you don't want to apologise to the manager. Even if you don't mean your apology to the manager, just do it as well. People were saying Bruno was crap. I don't know how you could say Bruno was crap. He was man of the match as well. Scott as a starter is like playing with 10 men. He can't link, create or defend. Yeah, 100%. The only thing Scott McTominay helps with is set-piece defending, which we conceded 2 goals from yesterday. But Scott McTominay's really not being good for United. He's been a ghost these last few games, and it was like the Christmas miracle. Ten Hag dropped McTominay. And even when we were 2-0 down to Villa at half-time, I said, look, this isn't good. The chemistry lacks, the quality lacks. But I said, to be honest, since going 2-0 down, we start playing football. That was the best performance Manchester United put in possession for the last season, and that one of the reasons was because it felt like we had 11 players without Scott McTominay playing. Yes, McTominay can score goals, but he's a bench player. When he's in the starting 11, he holds back the team as well. The thing is with Højlund not scoring goals is no one is feeding him the ball or see him running in behind. I actually want to speak about Rashford. There was many times where Rashford ran in behind and we didn't find him. There was many times where Højlund was in the box and we didn't find him. And I just think this team lacks IQ. It lacks the confidence to try and do certain passes other than Bruno Fernandes. And there was times where Højlund was in a good position, Rashford was in a good position, and we didn't find them. And I think that was really frustrating as well. Scott is being asked to perform a role that he's not really suited to. I think Eric Ten Hag just doesn't seem to know if he wants to press or not. But what is Scott's role? 1 minute he's playing as a 6, oh, he's not a 6. 1 minute he's playing as an 8, oh, he's not an 8. The next minute he's playing as a 10, oh, he's not a 10. What is Scott's role? Whatever role he plays, he can't do. He can be a box-crashing winger. Sorry, not box-crashing winger. He could be a box-crashing number 8. It's probably his best role. And he'd work well for a team that dominate possession, have good possession players around him, so he could just charge into the box. But I don't think people know what Scott's best position is because he's too inconsistent as well. Eriksen did have a good game. Bruno was arguably our best player out there as well. Sancho, we find his agents behind this. I don't know what's going on with Sancho, but I think he'll be gone. Adios, but no one's really shown much interest in Sancho as well. Bruno wouldn't get in any other top side, 6 side. You're telling me Bruno wouldn't start for Chelsea? You're telling me Bruno wouldn't start for Chelsea. You're telling me Bruno wouldn't start for Arsenal over Havertz or Odegaard? Bruno's better than Havertz. Bruno's better than Odegaard. Bruno is better than basically not everyone at Chelsea. Bruno probably, to be honest, Maddison's injured. To be honest, Bruno is better than Maddison, but Maddison's been better than Bruno. So maybe he wouldn't start over Maddison. De Bruyne is injured, so he'd start at Man City, but he wouldn't start over De Bruyne. And I guess he doesn't fit the Liverpool system, to be honest. But I don't believe that as well. Bruno's not been amazing lately, but there's no doubt in my mind that Bruno was one of the best, if not the best player at Manchester United as well. And he had a brilliant game as well. Scott is the Fellaini man. Scott is the Fellaini. He's just not really good at any of the positions. He's a good player to come on, give the opposition something different to think about in the last 10, 15 minutes and get a goal coming off the bench. Well, that's what Scott's role should be. Some guy that can make an impact off the bench. I don't think he's good enough to be a regular starter because he does not have the technical qualities to retain the ball or do what needs to be done as well. Our backline players give too much space for attackers to make as they wish in our box. I think that's to do more with the setup. I think that Ten Hag, when he commits players to the press, means more vulnerable in defence. But I have to say, other than the set pieces, Johnny Evans and Rafael Varane put in a very good game defensively, solid as well. Very good game defensively as well. A fully fit Maddison with the right players is better than Bruno's winning ways. Right, this season he is, but I think Bruno, if Bruno on his day, Bruno in form, only De Bruyne is better. But Bruno's not quite been at it yet. Bruno's not. He's not quite been at it. It's not been consistent as well. Ten Hag is experimenting, just trying to see what works with all these injuries. Scott experiment probably over. I do think Ten Hag's been experimenting, and I agree with you on that because he wanted Scott McTominay sold in the summer. It was so obvious that Eric Ten Hag wanted Scott McTominay sold in the summer. He was looking at replacements for McTominay, the player that started 6 games. McTominay started 6 games in all competitions the whole of last season. Ten Hag wanted them sold in the summer, had now started 13 games in a row, playing in different positions, moving players like Bruno out of position. I said there's no way that this is Ten Hag's plan because he wanted McTominay sold and he didn't use him at all last season, even though he was available for most of last season by the end. I said it's very obvious Ten Hag wants McTominay sold and he doesn't have plans for him. And then McTominay stayed and then he played 13 games in a row. And I was like, well, this wasn't Ten Hag's plan at the beginning of the season. You know, Ten Hag wanted this kind of player in Anthony and we're playing transition football. Ten Hag wanted Scott McTominay sold and now he's the soul of our team. I said it's very obvious that this Scott McTominay thing is an experiment and hopefully that's the end of it now. I think he scored 2 goals. We're in a team that isn't scoring. Got to play McTominay, this obsession. I think that this starting lineup, although they've just played 3 games in 6 days, this starting lineup needs to be the starting lineup that's going to go ahead and start versus Nottingham Forest. Personally, myself, I think that's what Manchester United need to do because, yeah, I can't lie to you guys. I think the Scott McTominay thing is an experiment, but you never know. He could be in the lineup next game, but we're just a better team without him. And I've been saying that for ages, and I don't want it to come across like it's an agenda, but we generally are a better team with McTominay. And I think that will be the last we see of McTominay starting regularly at United unless we've got more injury issues. I think with Eriksen, what will be interesting, though, is will he start Amrabat over McTominay? He likes Eriksen. I can see him doing Eriksen, Maino, Bruno. I swear if he drops Maino for McTominay, I'd lose my absolute mind because Maino's the only guy at United that can play that 6 role. Casemiro can, but he was a bit iffy when he played this season. I'd like to see Maino, Amrabat, Bruno. I mean, I tweeted out the other day what I think Man United's strongest lineup is. It's really interesting because I tweeted this out a few days ago and people were saying, oh, stupid. Like, I got some someone say you're a stupid woman. Garnacho can't play right wing. This is why Joey Barton's correct, all of that crap. But this is what I tweeted like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This was before Garnacho played right wing. And I said, this is the lineup I want to see from United. Shaw at left back. I said Dalot at right back, but I said certain games I want Wan-Bissaka ahead of Dalot at right back. It's just that Dalot would have the ability to invert. So between Dalot and Wan-Bissaka at right back, depending on the game, Varane and Martin as at centre back, with Casemiro as a 6. Maino is going a bit more advanced than Casemiro because I don't think we've seen Maino his best natural role. And Bruno is the 10 with Garnacho on the right, Rashford on the left and Højlund up top. I said this is the one lineup I want to see at Manchester United. And I think this could work well. I want to see sort of how Mason Mount would be used in this and all of that as well. But this is what I want to see. And hopefully we do get to see that. I don't want to see sort of McTominay coming in for Maino and all of that kind of stuff like Man United, like Ten Hag's been doing a lot as well. People saying Bruno's not creative. You're mad. Bruno's created the most chances in the league this season. Bruno's got like the highest expected assists out of any midfielder. We're just not good enough as a side. That is what I believe Man United's strongest lineup is, and that's what I want to see. I want to see this lineup play together once and what Ten Hag can do because I think that lineup is really exciting. But I was waffling about something, but I was talking about McTominay, and I think I was just saying something along the lines of, I want to see Maino with Amrabat, and I want to see Maino with Casemiro. That's what I want to see. I want to see Maino with a partner. Obviously, they're both out at the moment as well. You look a lot better when Bruno didn't play. Thank you. Lovely comment there. When did Bruno not play? Bruno, like yesterday, is class, but he rarely shows that consistency this season. Yeah. The thing is, we know Bruno is capable of being our best player, but the consistency's gone. And part of that is Bruno's problem, but I do think a big part of that is the fact that this squad is so inconsistent. The players are so bad. I think one of the reasons Bruno's been inconsistent is because he's got absolute crap around him as well. And even Rashford. I mean, Rashford's been way worse than Bruno. Rashford's consistency's been poor. When Rashford is on his game, we have runners in behind. Bruno plays better. The problem is Anthony isn't running behind off the ball and is dribbling in front of the opposition. I agree. And I want to show you something actually that I said on Rashford, which is stick with here. Rashford obviously got a lot of stick, and Rashford deserved to be dropped. But people wanted Rashford dropped because they said he holds back the team and he makes us worse as a team. And while he doesn't put the shift in and doesn't have the work rate, we could see when Rashford was on the bench, we were no better at scoring goals. In fact, we didn't score any goals when Rashford was on the bench. We didn't look any better as a team when Rashford was on the bench, other than maybe the pressing and the work rate. I said it's good to see Rashford looking sharp again yesterday. Made lots of good runs in behind and could have had 2-3 assists. While Rashford has been frustrated this season, he's so obviously our biggest goal threat. We never looked like scoring in those games. He was benched. He actually creates the most chances for our wingers, which is crazy because he's always sort of known as the selfish one. So hopefully he can get back on form. But I said, obviously Rashford doesn't deserve to get benched earlier on, as he was. Obviously, Rashford deserved to get benched earlier on as he was not good enough and the work rate was awful. But we are a better team without Rashford stuff that people say is not true, and I'll stick by that. Rashford on the left, Garnacho on the right, that is our best wing partnership. One game, that is our best wing partnership because Rashford and Garnacho are much better players than Anthony. They're much better players than Pelistri. I know Rashford's been poor this season, and I agree that Rashford deserved to be dropped because he was dreadful. But this whole we're a better side without Rashford, I'd sell Rashford. No, maybe we have to sell Rashford in the long term because his purple patches and his work rates are frustrating, and sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. He's 2 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. But I know people that want Rashford gone like that, and I will say this now: Anthony has to go, Lindelof has to go, McTominay has to go before you even think of touching Rashford. Okay, I will tell you this now because at the end of the day, we know that Rashford can be good enough to play for United. He's just very hit and miss with his form. Same with Bruno, same with Luke Shaw, same with Martinez, same with Casemiro, same with Varane. We know that they are and shown they're capable to have some success with United and be good enough. McTominay's never shown that. Lindelof's never shown that. Donny's never shown that. Anthony's never shown that. For me, I see people saying, get out Rashford, he makes the team worse. We'll never be a top team until Rashford goes. Well, at the end of the day, you can have that opinion on Rashford maybe in the long term, but in the short term, if Rashford doesn't play, we don't score. Rashford's out of form and not scoring, so we don't score. Rashford carried us last season when we still had these same problems. We are more likely to score when Rashford plays. When Rashford has a bad game, he does nothing, and he's awful, and he deserves to be benched. He deserves to be dropped, and Rashford deserves to be benched and dropped. But I don't think we'd be a better team without Rashford. I think when Rashford is in poor form, he needs to be dropped. And I think and that's what Ten Hag started to do, which is good. But I don't think this myth that we'll play better without Rashford is true. Sometimes we do play better without Rashford because of his work rate. But what I mean is I think he's actually our best winger. That's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't drop Rashford to accommodate Anthony. That's my point as well. I've always said that on Rashford as well. Bakayoko's good. Scott experiment went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Took about as long to bring Rafa back into the team. Eric Ten Hag needs to be more flexible. I agree. I think that's the most frustrating thing about Ten Hag is it took ages for him to finally give up and put Varane back in the team. He persisted with the Scott experiment too long. It's not like he does 2 or 3 games, realises it's not working, brings Scott back in, brings Varane in. He does like 10 games and then he's like, okay, take Scott out. 5, 6, 7 games, take Varane out, put Varane back in. It needs to be quicker, 100% as well. I'd love to have Fofana in the United squad. United are looking at the Monaco midfielder Fofana, if that's the Fofana you're talking about, because I feel like there's like 50 different Fofanas in football as well. Eric Ten Hag handled Rashford properly, in my opinion. His form and attitude wasn't right for long, had to be made. Yeah, I agree that Rashford had to be dropped and all of that as well. People saying Martinez is rubbish. I believe that Martinez is a good player as well. Alice been on the Diet Cokes again. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually exhausted, so I just drink Diet Coke to try and give me some kind of energy. I don't know why. Whenever I'm live, I always feel tired. Would prefer Wan-Bissaka on the right. Yeah, I mean, Wan-Bissaka and Dillo, I think, depends on game state as well. Bruno, when he's in form, is class. Just a set of matches, nothing comes off, which is frustrating as well. Keep smashing the like button, people. I am scrolling going through the live chat as well. people saying sell. Rashford should move to Newcastle Squares. A lot of people don't like Rashford, but I'm saying if you've got to sell Rashford and you've got to sell Antony and you can only sell one, who would you sell, Rashford or Antony? Would you sell Rashford before you sell Antony? Because if you say you'd rather keep Antony than Rashford, you're crazy. I think you're just a Rashford hater. I think Antony's too predictable. And I said this, the reason we beat Villa, because it's one of the reasons because Ten Hag got his lineup spot on, is because Ten Hag picked the best 11 players available that he could pick, because there was no Luke Shaw, there was no Amrabat. He picked the best back line midfield that he could pick, best attack, front line midfield, and he played them in the positions. It's not like he picked the best 11 players and played Bruno right wing. He played Rashford left wing. He played Bruno in the 10 role. He played Eriksen in the 8 role. He played Maino as a 6, which, to be honest, Maino's probably best position is an 8. But he picked the best players and he played them in their best positions, which made such a difference as well. We have too many players where it's on his day, 100%, and that's the biggest problem as well. 100%. Antony looks like he doesn't even know what he's trying to do. I mean, I think Antony lacks confidence, and we play a style of football that doesn't suit Antony, which shows to me that we've definitely changed what Ten Hag originally planned to do when he signed Antony. But I agree, I have sympathy in the sense of we don't play a style of football that helps Antony, and we don't have runners around, and I think we won't see the best of Antony till we do that. I don't think Antony was ever worth 85 million. I don't think he's good enough. I think he's too predictable. I think he's too one-footed to cut it in the Premier League. His work rate is good. We haven't played a system to get the best out of him. I think there's an okay player in Antony, but I don't think he will ever be worth 80 million. I think there's an okay player in there that we haven't unlocked, but I don't think there's a great player in there as well. Garnacho's the highest screening in the squad. His potential's unreal. He's like a young Ronaldo. Sometimes he's very frustrating and decision-making be poor, but he's such a talented young direct player that can make things happen. What I like about Garnacho is he made chances. He made chances for himself today. He drove at players. He did so much more than Antony. He put in a few good crosses, but it's just because it wasn't quite there as well. Mason Mount better than Antony? Maybe. I'd like to see Mason Mount in that role that Eriksen played, where he goes slightly to the left. And I think that's why Ten Hag signed Mason Mount, because he wants him to do that role that Eriksen did yesterday, where he's sort of drops into in possession, this sort of 2-4 shape, and he sort of comes as a left mid in possession. I think that's what Ten Hag wants to see more from Mason Mount as well. Antony's basically unsellable at the moment, 80 million on monster wages. He has to improve 100% as well. Maino's really promising. Yeah, Maino's brilliant. Maino, to think that Kobbie Mainoo is 18 years of age, is playing probably the hardest role to play in the United squad because you've got no support as a lone 6. And he came through the academy as sort of more of an 8 than a 6. So to be playing in that role with very little support and playing as mature as he does was absolutely brilliant. I've been really, really impressed with Kobbie Mainoo. I mean, his ability to win he won a lot of duels. He won a lot of headers. He was very good on the ball, progressed the ball into Bruno. He was one of the reasons we had another good game. And he's played big. Villa's a good side. He's played against Villa, Newcastle, Liverpool, Everton. All these good sides didn't look out of place. Even the West Ham game, he was one of our best players, bar the mistake. Kobbie Mainoo has been super, super impressive for Manchester United. Super, super impressive. And I think it's mad to think that he's 18. He just looks ready. He just looks prepared. I look at Kobbie Mainoo and I'm like, this guy's fine. This guy's ready. This guy knows what he's doing. This guy's a baller. That's what I see when I watch Kobbie Mainoo. I think, yeah, this guy's ready. He doesn't look out of place in the slightest. He looks so mature for his age. I mean, I look at Kobbie Mainoo and I think, how old's Kobbie Mainoo? He's 18. I look at Garnacho, he's 19. I look at Højlund, he's 20. I'm like, build the squad around those three. Build the squad around those three players. 18, 19, 20. Build the squad around them as well. Have faith in Antony. He works hard, still young. No, I said I think Antony can be an okay player. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite £85 million player. I think if we play the style of football where there's runners around Antony that unlocks Antony and he gets a few goals and some confidence and he works hard, there could be a decent player in Antony. I'm not completely writing him off, but I'm saying, you know, Rashford is better than Antony, Garnacho is better than Antony, and they consistently do more. I think Amad Diallo could give Antony some competition if this continues as well. Do you know Lindelof could take free kicks and score long-range goals? Still want him sold as well. People say Mason Mount is BS. Look, I don't know why we signed Mason Mount, but I want to see him tried in the Eriksen role. We've signed a player that Ten Hag wants. I want to see how Ten Hag uses Mason Mount, and because I think when Mason Mount played, he wasn't bad. I don't know why we signed Mason Mount over the likes of Maddison. I don't. But that was Ten Hag's choice and the board's choice, and I like Mason Mount. I think there's a good player there. I think if we utilise him and if Ten Hag has a plan, I want to see it with Mason Mount because I think when Mason Mount's played, he's been okay. Mainoo was solid. That type of DM work goes unnoticed. I agree. Exactly. The academy is on the cliff. Once you jump off, it takes all the game time you can. He is and actually doing it gracefully. Once you jump off it. Oh, what? Yeah, I've just misread that. Yeah. Do you know what's really exciting? Obviously, we're in the Youth Cup, but I remember if you ever scroll back to my Youth Cup watch along, I think at the end I said Kobbie Mainoo, Dangle, and Garnacho. They were the three players I named, but I said particularly I named Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho. I said Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho are the two most exciting academy players, but I said Dangle was also one that really impressed me, and it was really good to see those three players that I've been following for a while sort of get into the team. I think the next guy to keep an eye on will be Shea Lacey, especially right winger coming through. He's only just turned 16, so he's not going to be near the team for a while. Shea Lacey's one to watch for. I've been talking about Kobbie Mainoo for 3 years. I've been talking about Kobbie Mainoo since he was 15. I've been talking about Garnacho since that season with the Youth Cup win. They were great. I've been looking at Dangle for a while. He was great. And right now I look at the academy. I think that Isaac, the guy with the tattoos all over him, is good, but he might leave. But I think really young. Give it 2 years. Maybe this end of this season, maybe he'll go on tour in the summer. Shea Lacey's right winger as well. That guy is talented. And I look at the United Academy, and I think we've got technically our academy is really good. Like I look at our first team, I think technically we're off it. I look at the academy, I think technically this team is good. These players are good. We got some really good stars coming through. And I think the Youth Cup win with Gore, Mainoo, Garnacho, we knew we had some talent. And I think right now this is. We say that a lot, and then a lot of the talent ends up washed. But this looks like a good academy era with Dangle, Dangle we're not really seeing, but Mainoo and Garnacho we've seen a lot of. We've even got players like Isaac. Even players like William Camboila's got really good potential. And while we've been critical of United a lot, the one area that I won't criticise United is their academy recruitment. It's always great. It is great. But the rest of this thing is a disgrace as well. Maybe because they actually have proper footballing people decide who we sign for the academy, because Murta and Arnold aren't going to be interested in that, either as Woodward. Cocu should have been signed instead of Mount. Again, I agree with a lot of these. I'm just trying to be positive with Mason Mount. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why we signed him, but I don't think he was the right fit. But I think he's a good player, and I think we can definitely get a good player out of Mason Mount. Mainoo, Jude Rice, England won't have a bad midfield in 2 years, 100%. I see people saying play Trent in midfield for England, but I think Mainoo, Jude Rice would be more balanced. I don't think Gallagher will cut it. He doesn't really like James Ward-Prowse. Man, if he picks Calvin Phillips, who plays about one game every 6 months over Kobbie Mainoo to play in midfield, madness. Because Mainoo Rice pivot would work so well. And then unlocking Jude as well. Kvaratskhelia has been crap for about 8 months. Do you know what? Kvaratskhelia was brilliant. Kvaratskhelia, people, this is what I think is mad, is people were like, sell Rashford, get Kvaratskhelia, Rashford and... Actually, Kvaratskhelia has had a good season this season. But people were like, Kvaratskhelia, sell Rashford, get Kvaratskhelia, blah, blah, blah. Kvaratskhelia was really good for 6 months and then really poor for 6 months and has just found form again. And people were bitching about Rashford's purple patches. Well, Kvaratskhelia has been like that. He's been much better recently. But he had a period where he was really poor. Oh, I think we're lagging. I'm not sure what's going on with the stream here as well. Thuram's the CM player that Liverpool were looking at. Yeah, he would have been good. Frankie de Jong would be amazing. That's never going to happen as well. Can't be bothered with that as well. Frankie de Jong going to go to Bayern City or Arsenal? Please, no. I have to say the academy centre back impressing me. Tall, mobile, and comfortable. Yeah, he looked really good in that game as well. Johnny Evans has really impressed me. I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from Johnny Evans so far at United as well. Really happy with him. He's put in a good performance as well. Casilla would be a good move. I think he's very injury prone. In terms of a right winger, I'm a big fan of Elise. I'm a big fan of Bakayoko. I'm a big fan of Nico Williams and a big fan of Sule, but he's on loan from Juventus, so I can't see him going anywhere. They are the 3 right wingers that are openly say, yeah, I'm a big fan of those. I wouldn't mind seeing any of those at Manchester United. That's what I feel with that. But anyway, I think we're starting to lag, so I'm going to wrap up the live stream here. But please do hit that like button. Really good involvement in the chat, guys. We will be back live tomorrow, so don't you worry. So please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Thank you for watching. Bye.